I am Kimberly Kaler, president of AOE, and I'm here with a longtime colleague, client, and dear friend, Jim Beatty, executive director of Concrete Foundations Association. He wears a technical role as well with the Tilt Up Concrete Association, and also leads the efforts for CAMRA right now, the Concrete and Masonry related associations. So Jim and I are longtime friends, and I give you that little disclaimer in the beginning because the 20 minutes are going to fill up fast. We talk a lot. We grew up in this industry together, and we've talked quite a bit over the pandemic just in terms of how are you doing? What are you seeing? How do we shift our associations? How do we shift our organizations with this? So we wanted to get together today, just share a couple of ideas related to the pandemic and the pivot. And I'm going to start off, first of all, Jim, thank you for joining me, and kick this off with a question related to the conference you had for, the convention you had for the Concrete Foundations Association in July. So a year ago, if you told me that you know, the CFA, which is the Port Wall Basement Contractors, they're known for networking. Their convention folks are known for getting in their motorhomes and bringing their extended family to it. It's a social interaction. Of course, there's a lot of learning and sharing that happens there too. But you had to pivot, and you pivoted to the point where your convention used avatars and, you know, very, very tech savvy type of convention. I'm sure a year ago, we probably would have said, no way, if we would have talked about that, but it was a huge success. So talk to me a little bit about that pivot and how you had the guts to do it.
Well, it was, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I always enjoy the chance to talk with you. And so I hope that whatever we talk about is meaningful to others. You know, I think like so many organizations, we had some really difficult decisions to make. And I know that you've been a part of many of those difficult decisions that we faced and we're still facing. You know, we're not at the end of this. It began for us in a really kind of an interesting dialogue about really answering the concern for essential or non-essential businesses. And we saw many states or several states that were either contemplating or definitely going towards considering businesses, most businesses non-essential, which then meant you were going to have a lot of workers, a lot of leaders that were going to be without active work and maybe an opportunity to learn. And so we really kind of jumped into that and thought, this is where we need to be. That's the power of networking, is being able to fill that void. And what we found is real quickly, as most in the construction industry, that we became essential, which is great for our membership and for our industries. And it's been record years for so many people. But as the reality moved forward and it looked like there's just no way that we could put the risk out there for many reasons to hold a physical conference, we decided the virtual was going to be it. And because of what you described, the essence of our organization, which I believe is really the essence of any organization, is the networking. It's the in-between times. You can learn in a lot of different ways. You can investigate technology in a lot of different ways, but it's really it's that personal networking. It's the context. It's the whole I remember you, or we haven't touched base with each other. How's your wife? How's your kids? That type of thing that takes place. And so I think that was the foundation of the decision that we made, was to try to get us to a point where we could create a networking realm for people to do on their own, that wasn't directed, that wasn't organized, it was free for them to take in any direction they wanted to. And that ultimately formed the decision for the platform that we invested in. And it was a success. I think you're absolutely right. Our industries, particularly the Concrete Foundations Association, very bricks and mortar, very hands-on guys and gals that are used to being in the field and not behind technology. And so that's a real challenge to then put them in front of technology and hope that they can invest personally in it the way they would if they got on a plane and flew to a hotel or drove their motorhome. So fortunately, we found that. Again, you have to. We found that in many cases, and you have to put them in a situation where they feel like they're away, or feel like there's some way that they can see that interaction taking place, not trusting on this video communication we're using today.
That dovetails to what we were talking about before we even got on the line here, which is just, we understand the networking part is so important. And I have found in a lot of the conferences or conventions or meetings that I've attended the last 6 months, the networking part is the hardest to recreate. And I've seen a lot of really, really good attempts, but they kind of fell flat. Or maybe they somewhat did their job, but it's really hard to recreate the see you in the hallway, the dinners, all of that. Do you feel like you accomplished that, or at least took some steps towards creating that? Because it's a tough one, and I don't have the silver answers on any of that yet.
Yeah, it is that I think that's the big equation, and interestingly we did, and so one of my fond memories after doing this a couple of times now is is seeing somebody with a digital avatar representing them getting out of their seat and choosing to walk out the door because they were either going to the next session or they wanted to go meet with somebody. They had not just clicking a button and saying exit like you would from a software program, which is certainly something you can do, but that sense of reality. And so I think that's really where the success lies, is how do you create that, how do you eliminate the barrier? Maybe we'll say it that way. Eliminate the barrier to someone hiding behind their computer, and you and I have also talked about, divest or focusing your energy, not divesting your energy and multitasking, but really just kind of giving your all into the moment of this opportunity to be present, whether you're learning or whether you're networking, and important, very much so on the networking side, because the quickest thing that loses out when you're multitasking in a virtual organization environment is the sense that you're personally you're not available to somebody, or if you are, it's after the fact. You get this alert, hey, somebody was wanting to talk to you, but I'm over here on a phone call on my office phone, or I'm over here on my email, and then I hear the alert and I turn back and they're gone because
Right.
people aren't going to wait around.
What about the next generation? All of the associations in our industry talk a lot about next gen. Some have programs, but getting the next generation involved. And I have heard some silver linings related to the pandemic, that this is a chance to get folks that maybe weren't going to the meetings involved, attending things. It's an easier format. Any thoughts at all in terms of silver linings, next gen?
I'd say more challenges. So the interesting thing that we found, so I come from the early gaming generation. You and I both do, and so our specific experience, this virtual world, this avatar world, very much fits into a lot of my memories of early gaming and what engaged me and drove me into video gaming. We now have a lot of young professionals and young people in general throughout our industries being engaged in these virtual networking environments that grew up in software, grew up in gaming, far more sophisticated than anything that we're delivering. And one of the risks to organizations, I think, is putting on events that are platform based where it's just static learning. There's got to be engagement. There has to be that ebb and flow, that give and take of participation and receipt. And if you don't have that, if there's not that interaction, then it's complete boredom, and it's their eyes gloss over and they forget to get involved, or they're not able to get involved. And so I think that's what we found is that you want to create environment, and we're kind of all like that, but particularly that next gen, or the current young professionals generation that we're dealing with. That's what I've seen from them, is that they want that sense of interaction and participation.
I think that's a great tip. I shared, earlier with you today that I attended a conference last week for marketing professional services, and I was so thrilled to be able to attend at a cheaper rate and have 40 different sessions to choose from. And the sessions were fantastic, but I was bored. I was exhausted. I was tired. I was flipping from thing to thing. And even though I know better, I wasn't able to create any sort of engagement within myself. So, question for another day is, how do we as leaders in the industry create that engagement or that focus? We can put it out there, but I think we're going to need to actually help guide people to take the next step with it. Talk to me a little bit about shifting paradigm of work-life balance, what that means for your membership, where you see that headed, I know some of your members, a lot of yours aren't working from home, but many in the industry are. So
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I am representing a construction industry that spends so much of their time in the field, and now early on, again, I would say kind of that time frame from March to June, March to May, right in there. That's where we saw a lot of the office personnel working from home,
yeah,
um, and and now we've kind of gone back to, I mean, less of that, more working from the office, less hybrid, but still it's present. And I would say an interesting positive that I've seen is bringing the family environment into your work, and rather than a separate chapter or a separate you, the ability to close down my work and I go home and I invest in my home life or my family life. Some of this virtual has been able to bridge that or bring that together, and we actually have tried some fun interactive things where we bring the family members intentionally into the event in some way, which is really kind of, from my experience, a big part of who CFA has always, the Concrete Foundations Association has always been, is engaging the family. That's why we have an event in the summer, which is the peak of the construction industry. Why would you have a 4-day event in the middle of the summer? Well, it's because the kids are out of school, and you go to family destinations, or you go to places where they want to be. You give people that break, which I think is an interesting key, that we have to be very careful with as organizers, and that is compressing the events so that we're not monopolizing the available time out of the convenience of the virtual space. And by that, I mean, it's far too easy for us to expand our events because we're not asking you to get on a plane. We're not asking you to take a trip or drive a car across country and have at this hotel. There's all those quiet times when you're in a physical event. What we try to do, I think, or what our impetus has been over the last couple of months, is to try to maximize the potential now, because you don't have to travel, and give you
yeah,
as many things. You experienced it last week, as
yeah,
many things to choose from. So what do you end up doing? You choose them all.
yeah.
Why not? And eventually you're going to lose out because you can't put that much learning in. You can't absorb that much, and so fatigue sets in. And so I think as organizers, where we're challenged, and where I see the challenge for my staff, is to really kind of figure out that balance to giving the input or the impact, having the impact, and yet uh, treating treating the wellness of the individual so that they feel refreshed by the presence and not burdened by it.
Two things I want to comment on that. First of all, a conference I was supposed to attend in May as an attendee, Association for Strategic Planning, when they decided to go virtual, instead of cramming it into the 3 days that we would have met in person, they opted to break it out every 2 weeks. There was a 2-hour session over the lunchtime, and it went all the way May through September. So at first I wasn't sure if I would like it or not, but it allowed me to really carve out that 2 hours, focus on that topic, have time to digest it. So I share that in case it's something that those on the line here today can take away from. And then you made a comment, which I'm really interested in, about how you've tried to engage the family more. The family life is all around us. I'm wondering if my dog, who's sitting next to me at some point, is going to make a noise. What have you done? What has worked? Share with us an idea for all of us of how you've engaged the family, what those activities look like.
Well, and so again, I think it very much is based on the platform. So two ways that we did it. One, on the front side of our events, we had these experience kits, and with the experience kits, you can package up a bunch of goodies and you can send it to the attendees, the registrants, and where they can open up, and there's a sense of arrival that creates, that they're able to say, oh wow, I mean, gosh, I wonder what that's going to be for, and some of it's not for anything, some of it's just to have, and so
Right.
it might be a stress ball, or it might be something, and then you have those experience kits that you can also think about. Okay, well, this person may very well likely be attending in their home office, and they may have kids, they may have a partner. What can benefit them that way? And so that was one side of it. The other side of it is the event itself. And if the platform is conducive to it, it's not just this, so GoToMeeting, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, we've all been a part of so many of those. And that's really just one-to-many learning. Invest yourself in whatever content is being presented to you, try to absorb it and move on to the next one. Our virtual spaces, what they provided for were things like foot races and soccer games and live music concerts. And in this last one, we held an event for the Tilt Up Association this last week. And on Friday afternoon, it was Bring Your Kids to Work Day in the space, in which we encourage you to turn your avatar over to the kids and let them run around the space. And so it was really a neat way to say, yeah, I had this experience and I'm going to finish it. The last thing I'm going to remember is doing this with my son or my daughter. And so that we had some real fun with that.
That's really neat, because I think from a management perspective, we've got two messages going out right now. It's, hey, team members, make sure your space is professional. Yes, you're in your home, but make sure your bed is made or everything's cleaned up behind you, which is one message. But the other message is your family is there, right? And how do you turn it into an advantage at some point? So I love those ideas. Those are great. Right. Talk to me a little bit about what 2021 looks like. All of the names I see on this phone here are all responsible for planning, meetings, events, conferences, events, interactions with clients. I'm struggling with how to tackle, everything from budgeting, but what do marketing plans, anything look like for 2021? How are you crystal balling and trying to tackle that?
So I'm gonna first say that I think one of the keys to 2021 is looking beyond 2021, and I think what 2020 has to be looked at as teaching us is the value of virtual networking. While it has been an apologetic way for us to still engage, maybe in some cases as organizations build revenue or to maintain revenue, maintain a hold on revenue or a portion of it. I think we have to look at it from the perspective of what did it deliver and what opportunities, what role does it have in our future? Because now I don't see, right, in my crystal ball, I don't see a time in our world where we will be without virtual learning. And we've had that issue for years and years and years, that 15%, 20% of the association comes to a given event. And even in that, for those that do attend, it's usually one person or two people, and there might be 30 or 40 or 100 that are behind them. Virtual, I think, is a way for us to engage those that either can't afford the time or the expense to get away to come to an event to learn. And so I think that's what, to me, I'm choosing to not focus on what am I going to be missing in 2021, but what can I make from 2021 as we look to combine those two. That way, if we do see an extended impact of the pandemic deep into 2021, we're able to slightly pivot to more virtual, but always have that opportunity to bring it back to a combination of physical and virtual. And I think that, to me, is the key for us as organizers to really benefit from what we were given in 2020 or what we had to deal with.
That is a huge aha for me. So thank you for that. But you're right, looking beyond next year and not looking at it as what we can't do, but what do we do moving forward? And you mentioned it's going to have a network. We're always going to have an online learning component moving forward, but I think we're also going to have an online networking component too.
Right.
And we've got to get better at it. We really do.
We do have to get better about it, because there's a lot of people that are left in the margins that we don't engage in networking. And if we only network with that 15 to 20% that can at any given time show up, there's 75 to 85% of our organizations that we don't have contact with. And we've already determined that the reason why you stay a member of something is engagement, is networking. Because education or resources need come and go. It's how do you engage them?
So final questions, and I'll wrap up, and I'll invite folks to jump in and type questions in the question box right now if you have any. But, and this is kind of a double hitter, Jim, but, you know, what does engagement look like now in post-pandemic? You've talked a little bit about it, but, you know, how to create buy-in now for the virtual world. So building on that, you know, again, your membership, I was in awe when I was at your convention virtually in July, and how tech savvy the group was, and how they shifted and pivoted, which is a lot due to the platform and your leadership. But how do we create that? How do we move ahead in the virtual world and create such buy-in?
I think we have to challenge them. I think it comes down to, and you and I were talking before this all got started about, you know, this idea of multitasking, and I think we have to create events with this virtual component that challenge them to arrive, challenge them to be present in this moment, not thinking how can I take advantage of this and still get this done over here, or oh, I hear my phone ringing. Okay, so I'm going to put this on mute, take my video off so you can't see I'm on the phone, or maybe you can watch me while I'm on my phone and answer that call. But I think because I'm so convinced that virtual is going to play a role in who we are as organizations for the future, I think we have to instill the development step for people as to how to really gain the benefit from it and how to see the virtual as part of their physical reality.
Fantastic point. So any question that you were expecting me to ask you? Anything else you want to cover here? Any final thoughts?
No, those are really good questions. Thanks for, you know, kind of setting it up and drawing that out. Those are a lot of things that I've been thinking about, and I tend to be I'm an extrovert, and I tend to be a very passionate person. And so if I see an opportunity to buy into something and deliver it, I'm gonna pursue it to as far as I possibly can. And I'm also not gonna willingly accept the negative of things that invade our world. And so I would really just say that as my closing thought to anybody is that we just have to set aside right now the fact that we endured 2020 and really look at it and say, what did we accomplish in 2020? And if we look at it in that perspective, we set ourselves up to be very successful organizers for the future.
Awesome. Well, we do have one question in, and this actually, we were talking about it before we started as well. There are guidelines for charging in-person attendees versus virtual attendees that are fair. And I'll quickly answer, and then Jim, let you jump in on this one. I have seen, at least in the industry, you know, last spring when we pivoted, most people did free or very, very nominal fees, at least in the beginning, and that went mostly through the summer. We're starting to see, you know, industry-wide now, a lot of the shows, conventions, activities, there is a fee, but it's a nominal fee compared to what would have been in person. But the discussions I've had with folks, we're expecting to see those fees actually go up if we do have virtual meetings in the spring, and many have already been announced, just so they're more comparable to value. You know, at some point we undervalue ourselves, or sure, we sign up for it, but we're not really engaged. Jim, are you seeing the same thing? Go ahead and comment on that, because I know your events were greatly reduced or fee that you've already done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so. I think, and there was a key point you made there, a statement about not devaluing ourselves. And so we can quickly equate the price of attendance to the context that we created the event in. And so if I go to, well, we were supposed to be in Raleigh in a couple of weeks for ACI convention, and I can understand from an organizer's perspective the amount of expense that I have in creating an event like that. I can visualize, we were supposed to be in Charleston, South Carolina this summer for CFA, and I know exactly what my hard costs were going to be for that event. And I can relate that to what my expectation is for people to attend. The reality is that you set in the physical realm, you set a price that's more about honoring what you're expecting them to get out of. And you're asking them, by the way, to spend $300 to $500 to $7,500 a piece in addition to whatever they pay to you to come there and to receive it. And so now, if you pick the right model, if you pick the right vehicle, the context to deliver them virtually, the same value for the attendance, the same networking, or very, very close, there should be no devaluation. And we have played that game. We've gone with a free event. We've gone with a 15% of value event, and really tried to encourage people to come so that they could support ultimately what are the real dollar amounts in your event with the sponsors and the exhibitors. The reality is the sponsors and exhibitors are getting the same value out of it if they were in person versus virtual, if you build the right event. And the attendees are no different. And so I would agree that I think the more we move this forward, the more we integrate it, the more value we're going to find in it. But we have to teach people to not become exhausted by them and to not try to absorb it all, because then they're going to hate it and they're going to feel like that was money not well spent.
I think a really good message out of all of this is that, when the pandemic's over and we all open up again, I know there's a lot of discussions about people just wanting to go back to the old way, and we acknowledge there's never going to be that again. We're going to have the online. Things will probably be hybrid. So it is important for all of us to think through what hybrid looks like in terms of value. Many don't realize that holding a hybrid convention costs a lot more than just hosting a convention. I mean, it's not as just adding some, internet lines and call-ins. I mean, it's really, really complicated to do it right. So that's what, incumbent on us to try and get that right at this point. So
and it puts at risk your the attendance. So as you integrate a virtual component and you're saying, here's the same experience virtually as you're going to get physically, and yet we're going to charge you $700 here, and we're going to charge you $70 here.
Right.
That's a no-brainer, because I got to also spend $5,000 along with the 700. And so we've got to bring those two closer together.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm looking to see if there's any other questions. Nothing is coming in. So we are right actually at time here. I will share with you that the November webinar that we're going to do to finish out the year is actually going to be 6 of the AOE team managers having a conversation about lessons learned through the pandemic and how we're pivoting and helping our clients pivot. So it's going to be a discussion just like this in terms of what we see, what we've learned, some ideas, especially going into 2021 planning. So that is on November 14th at 1 o'clock Eastern. All of our webinars are actually posted on AOEwebinars.com. So I invite you to go ahead and grab them and share them, and then let us know what other ideas that you have for them. And then Jim, in closing, thank you for the conversation, as always. I appreciate it. And thank you for helping lead our industry with this. I learned a lot from talking with you today, so I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. It's always good to be participant with you.
Awesome. And my wish for all of you is just to be healthy and be well. So thank you much.